Good morning, members, officers and members of the public. My name is John Gator, Clerk to the Board. The public element of today's meeting is being recorded in line with City Corporation's policies, and the recording shall be retained for up to 1 year. Chairman.
Thank you very much, John, and welcome as the new town clerk for this committee. Thank you very much for taking us on, or being persuaded that this is a great committee.
The former chairman. Thank you very
anyway,
much.
Thank you very much indeed. Apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Deputy Marianne Fredericks, Alderman Alison Gowman, Wendy Mead and James Tunbridge. In addition, I believe Jason Pritchard will be joining us slightly later today.
Just wanted to mention that this morning we had an extremely good visit to Smithfield. And I'd particularly like to thank Gregory Lawrence for inviting the Chief Commoner to ruin one of the Lawrence lambs. The Chief Commoner managed to cut part of it in such a way that, of course, the commercial value of said lamb has been significantly reduced. So apologies on behalf of the board, but the photograph of this action will be circulated to members after the meeting. It will only be circulated to people on this board because I think the director was slightly nervous about the health and safety risk. Anyway, it was great fun, and if you do get the chance to come to visit the markets, it is actually quite beneficial. And Dan, thank you very much to all your team for looking after us this morning. It was a very enjoyable visit. Right, sorry, members' declarations.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 2, are there any declaration on the Code of Conduct in respect of any items on the agenda today?
Particularly an interest. Thank you.
Item 3, Chair, is the public minutes of our last meeting on the 9th of July. These are for decision, pages 5 through 8.
I assume that you've all read them. I'm confident that everything in the minutes is picked up during our meeting, but does anyone have any questions about the minutes? You all happy? Thank you very much.
Chairman, item 4 are the updates from the general managers. This is for information, page 9 through 12.
So should we start down with you?
Thank you, Chairman. Just the only thing to add in this section of the meeting is that our health and safety, our health Safe 365 score has gone back up and has now crossed the threshold of the town clerk's target. So yes, we're in a much better position than we were at the time of writing this report.
I've got 2 questions for you, Dan. I know that we had an emergency with the gas works in the road last Friday. I'd like to thank you very much for the prompt way that was acted on. But a question for you and also the superintendents in the other markets. Is it worth having a special list of phone numbers that is available to officers for when there are disasters like the leaving of all the spoil on the side of the road before trading begins? I just wonder if there's a benefit for you to have that. I know the director found it quite difficult. You took 10 or 15 minutes to find the phone numbers. I just wonder if it's worth having something that's readily available for all of you.
Chairman, as part of our continuity plans, certainly the staff that are on site all the time, the security and the control rooms have officers' contact details. We do have a whole number of sort of emergency call out contractors, CBRE and such like, but from time to time it does expose, depending on the event, it does expose perhaps a small vulnerability. We didn't have the highways number, but as you've just alluded to, we sort of got that within a short space of time, and there were members of staff from the Smithfield local team on site within an hour, liaising with contractors and happily on this occasion getting the issues resolved.
Thank you very much. Do the Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to double check on something which I read in the papers about a visitor membership scheme, I think it was somewhere. Page 12, Tenants Association have expressed to wish to operate a market membership scheme that would allow for tighter control of visitors. Apologies, Chair, I'm new to this committee. I just wanted to have some clarification on what that would entail. Thank you very much.
What we might do is, Emma, are you happy to pick that up
Yeah.
when we get to your, is that okay? That's a good point. Thank you. Does the SMTA have anything to comment on Smithfield at the moment?
No, but I would like to add, Chairman, and you've not set me up like this, by the way, I would like to add the new superintendent, Mr. Ritchie, has been excellent. 2 words which go a long way in the market arena is firm and consistent, and that's what Mr. Ritchie is. And I must add as well, the head of security, Mr. Andy Waker, excellent. He does Billingsgate and Smithfield, excellent. And Mr. Ritchie's got the full support of the SMTA all times.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Paul. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with the members' comments about the new working relationship, but just to go back to the gas issue, members who toured this morning will have seen a quite extraordinarily large gas problem. And tenants take that on board. These things happen. It's been dealt with properly and efficiently. More concerns for us is the other hole, the smaller gap you saw on the corner of Grand Avenue and Long Lane. This has been an ongoing gas emergency for over 18 months. For more than half of that time, it's been sealed off with an emergency sign around it with a gas number inked in black. 2 problems. One, obviously, the risk, and it's out of our control, I think, but I'd like it to escalate a little bit. Secondly, because it's barred off, our cleaners don't clean it. The street cleaners clearly don't clean it because of the risk, and it ends up detritus is collecting in there on a regular basis. So we've got to highlight that. And then another sort of more serious matter that only came to my attention this morning at SMTA council meeting, the planned Islington Road closure on the northern side, which is where the Pret a Manger is effectively, as I understand it, that decision has now been taken against our city contributions to debate, and the plan is to close that both outwardly and inwardly, effectively closing 1/3 of the market's access at some point in 2026. And could we get an update? Thank you.
So the point that Mr. Martinelli has raised has sort of come to light over the summer, and it would appear that despite the representations made by my predecessor and the SMTA themselves, Islington have gone ahead with plans to close St John Street to vehicle access, and the decision appears made. Full disclosure, I have not pursued it further, but it does appear as though a decision has been made by Islington.
Is this a permanent closure to pedestrian?
Permanent closure.
Well, that seems. Look, I mean, I had not heard until this morning, Paul, so I have absolutely no idea. I think maybe this is something to pick up outside the meeting, but to me, that just seems quite an unusual decision given the commercial comments. Mark, sorry.
Well, yes, Chair. Forgive me, I'm not an expert on the law or this particular situation, but even if not for this committee, is it something that the corporation can challenge legally? And if so, through what route and when? Thank you, Chair.
Well, the other half of my point was going to be, surely there's a restraint of trade factor in this.
I think we've made that point, Chairman. Whether the city was forceful enough or could take action would be very helpful if you could look at it.
Do you know who? So the SMTA made a representation.
Yeah.
Who
Mark Sherlock was certainly involved in the discussions early in the summer. I don't know if it went above that level.
And do we know who he was talking to at Islington?
I can find out. I can pick up with you later.
It'd be really helpful. But I think for outside, unless you want to make a comment.
We have Mark's emails to the fact that we made representations at the time, and we endeavoured to make strong representations on behalf of the SMTA. We were in the room at the time. For them to just go over the top of any representations and just make a decision without telling us, it's poor. So we will follow that up.
That would be really helpful. Well, thank you very much.
Chair, might I just ask or suggest potentially if we as a committee could take this as a resolution or a request to the Chair of Policy and Town Clerk to liaise with our Controller's Department and examine all legal options to challenge this, because it does seem deeply prejudicial. Thank you, Chair.
It's a first class idea.
Chairman, I can't overstate the importance of this, because it's hard to visualise how the market could be run with St John Street being closed. It is that serious.
Well, we stood and we looked at all the offloading bays this morning, and that's that street as far as it's the opposite side where you came and sat. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll make a point of getting to the bottom of that as soon as possible. And we'll come back to the SMTA as well. We may actually write on a combined basis between the corporation and the SMTA to whoever's relevant at Islington. Anything else on Smithfield? Sorry.
Just to check, Chair, is that sort of resolution suggestion?
Well, I think it's a first class idea. Does anyone not agree that that resolution should be? Are you happy with that? Okay. That'd be brilliant. Well, we might, as it was Mark's, we'll check with him as well. Thank you very much. And anything else on Smithfield? Well, Dan, thank you very much, and thank you again for this morning. Julia, you have to pick up on Billingsgate, please.
Nothing further to add from the report. Thank you, Chair.
Are you confident in our meters?
I'm not confident in the meters at the moment because I believe they're end of life, and some of the meters have had the metering circumvented. So as part of the water efficiency improvements, the energy team are supporting to get those meters replaced on the market floor. So hopefully then we can set some robust targets for Mighty around cleaning and improving water efficiency as well.
Brilliant. Well, that would be great if we could do that. If you're not confident in them, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Any questions for Julia on Billingsgate? Thank you very much. Emma, with the additional question.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got nothing to add to what's in the report, but I will explain the membership scheme. So at the moment, obviously, we're open to the public. You do have to pay for parking, but essentially access is unfettered during trading hours. What we're looking at whether we could do is run some sort of membership scheme, which would still be free of charge. So it's not to prohibit anybody as such, but it would give us better data on who and what they're doing. So the aim really is if particularly pedestrian visitors, not complying with site rules like wearing of a high vis, because we could stop them on site and view their membership, we could then block their entry on their next visit to ensure that they are following those rules on entry. So on a very basic level, if you think of like a Costco membership scheme that just gives some form of ability to control people, but it's very, very early stages. Obviously, the Tenants Association feel quite strongly about this. So we're looking at various options. It would mean a complete replacement of our current barrier. We've got a 7-lane entry and exit system and a pedestrian controlled gate. That would all have to be completely changed. Birmingham wholesale market, it sounds like they're doing something similar. So very much looking at what they're doing, and then we can kind of go from there really. So early stages, but exploring our options. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Chairman, through the chair, is the tenants on board on that?
And the request has come from the association and the tenants.
You're happy?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We actually flagged it up to the to the corporation that we take on health and safety a very, very serious subject. We've never ever missed a meeting for the Health and Safety Committee in decades. We attend and we contribute and we support. And we've done so much work in Spitalfields to comply with health and safety, and yet we've got hordes of people walking around the market, which are basically almost above the law. The constabulary can't touch them. They're not wearing high vises. They're coming in flip flops, and they're in amongst. And it's an industrial site, so it's out of control. So we flagged it to Emma. We understand there's going to be some considerable expenses in redoing the barrier, but the barrier is causing us some concerns at the minute, and I think it does actually need replacing anyway. But to replace it to accommodate this sort of thing, it's just like, as Emma says, just a membership card, and it would basically just make it that everybody on the site is registered and is liable to make even an administration charge if they're not abiding, but certainly can stop them from coming on the site until they agree to apply to the rules. The rules, which nobody knows at the minute, but the rules would be, obviously then they would see the rules by the fact that they're members, and they would be issued with the site rules. So it would tick an awful lot of boxes and carry on improving our health and safety record, which is, touch wood, absolutely excellent in Spitalfields.
Seems thoroughly sensible. Any other questions for Emma? See, Emma, I had just one question. Well, two technically. Outdated emergency lighting. When will we know the results? And my other question, really, to those dealing with Mighty, do you meet jointly with Mighty, and if so, how often?
I'll answer the Mighty question first. So we have an operations manager on site every day. So he's at our disposal whenever we need him, but we have contract meetings with the operations director, I think the title, once every quarter. We can bring them sooner if we're having problems, but it's running quite smoothly. So
I mean, I know that technically quite new, but I just thought it was quite helpful. And you're on the emergency lighting?
That was the project in my energy update.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a meeting actually this afternoon. The FM team have got some queries regarding the proposal that has been put forward. That proposal has just obviously come from looking with one organisation, so I think they'd like to propose that we look at some other options before putting it back to the CAS funding for approval. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Chairman, thank you. Item 5 is the Markets Division Business Plan Update Report for information, pages 13 through 26.
Any questions or comments on this?
I'm visited before. Page 21. It sets out what I think is the current energy prices in a schedule form. I'm still surprised to see the day rate is pretty much the average of the day rates available in the market, but the night rate is significantly higher than that which is available on the public market. I looked up this morning, for instance, there's a night rate with an EV rate quite available to the public at 7.9 pence. This is significantly higher. This is more than twice. Is that really sustainable? And why are we paying so much more?
What page have you got? Sorry,
21.
21.
Oh, well, it's 21 in my pack. Are you page 20 online? I've obviously got a slightly different pagination. It's called Appendix.
Well, you've done something incredibly clever because I can't find it.
Well, I can't explain it. I simply I can't explain it at all. It's very,
but the point is well made, Oliver, because
it's a very different page to yours.
But what I think is really interesting is that if looking online, you've got a significant difference. Who would have the best insight into the question raised by Mr. Sells?
So
difficult for you.
question
We
was
haven't
raised
got the
at
same
the
page,
last-
I imagine. You're
at the last
somewhat at a
meeting.
disadvantage.
We had the question answered by Emma Bushell at the
Yeah,
last
the
meeting.
energy team.
That's where the energy team brought
Okay.
out the detail, and that we were quite explicit in the last meeting how we arrived at the values quoted. It's something that we can take away for councillor Sells. Yeah, that's fine.
He's had a very busy summer. Well, at the end of the day, Oliver, you're quite right. I mean, the key is we want to save money, and
Energy rates come down, night rates in particular.
okay, we'll pick up on that outside of the meeting. Anything else on item 5? Okay, moving on.
Chairman, thank you. Item 6 is the City Surveyor's Wholesale Market Risk Update Report. For information, pages 27 through 46.
And you're going to comment on this?
I think the paper is fairly self-explanatory, Chairman. I have John Galvin here who can speak to risk, and obviously Jane Poulton is the officer that runs the risk registers for us. You will see that the flight path is no longer a thing in there for members, so the format has changed slightly. I think the flight path looked backwards at what a risk was previously, but there was no timescale attached to that. So a risk could be 3 years old, it could be 6 months old, and there was no x-axis that would suggest timescale, I think. So I think you have some dates in there. I think, Chairman, you clarified one point in call over on page 43. It's a due date for evaluation and prioritisation of the 31st of March 2026 rather than the works done. There will be a further date there for works done, but we are well within, we are now organised, I would say, in terms of the capital works programme. It's all in one single piece of paper now, and that takes historic works, critical works, all of the works that are encompassed in any compensation deal going forward. They're all in one place. We understand what has been done. We can evidence what has been done. We know what has broken again since last time it has been done. So we're in a better spot to now manage that going forward.
And that's fully costed.
Fully costed, but some of the costs are old. Some of the dates of and the prioritisation of works will change. I think some of the works are low priority for Billingsgate, for example. They are low priority. So we're looking at the mechanism for going back to the tenants associations to get agreement to change the priority and in fact wrap up some of the works in larger bodies of works. So change the profile in terms of time, change the budget in terms of spend, because some things are more expensive now, some things are less expensive now, and then get agreement from the tenants associations that we are taking the right approach to this.
Any questions on this?
So if I could, thank Ben. I'm assuming that the flight path removal is a corporate-wide decision that's been taken.
I'm told so, yes. And I think what you will see here is a different approach to corporate reporting overall. John, I could pass to you at this point for more of an oversight in terms of how the reporting of risk will change.
Yeah, very briefly, the corporate team who oversees risks is quite keen that there's more consistency in the way that risks are reported to different committees. You'll note that the format in the appendix has been changed since you saw it last time. That's on their advice, and I understand that they're working on the covering report as well to make sure that there's some consistency in the way that that's presented as well. But I've not yet seen the results of that.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just as a member my member's role to regret that, because I think it's important that committee members know how long and how how long we've been above our risk appetite in the risks that are shown here. And it's important to have a time starting of the risk. Some of these risks are 3 years above risk appetite, and I think we're losing control, particularly then on the markets. I think it's NS003 and the deterioration of physical assets due to lack of adequate maintenance. Let's not forget the catastrophic beam failure, which is now nearly 3.5 years old, which has still not been addressed. And we've raised it at this committee, every other committee probably don't raise it all the time, but there is no maintenance programme that's resolved that risk. And I think this committee should keep sight of it. So thank you.
So thank you, Councillor. I think that's excellent information to be contained. I think the flight path was the wrong way to contain that because nobody could make any sense of it. I think we need to probably contain that information in the narrative, and certainly I will raise that with the teams in action, that we have something in there and the words that are set against the risks to show when the risk started and how long we've been above risk appetite.
Chair, I just concur with my colleagues' comments, because I would have thought one of the very simple, straightforward plans to implement the Billingsgate Transport Risk Code SUR MKT-BJ 009, created in February 23, where you have an action plan in place as the latest note marked 21st of August. So I'm not saying that these things cannot be done in a much more faster manner, because I would have thought that would have been a lower priority than the other items as mentioned by my colleague here. But it does seem warranted that there should be some urgency associated to get these things off the risk register. And of course, I leave it to our chair to push these along. But simply to say that we have got things mulling over 2 years onwards when they are on the risk register seems to me something that is of a high concern.
Well, I would pick up the fact that our red risk has been going since 2020. Paul, I think it's a very good point, and I think it's something we need to flag up.
So I would say that there are risks here that we will never get rid of. There are risks that we will always be just controlling. There are mitigations that we put in place that are reasonable and practicable, and we can't go above that level until we invest in a new market. So part of the whole reason for the market move was to bring in better health and safety controls. We're in a position here where transport risk is high here, but that is reflected in our controls. So we have a score of 83 at Spitalfields, for example, and Safe 365, the highest in the corporation. We've got an aggregate score of 69 across the markets in general. I guess mid-60s for Smithfield now. So at 65 last I checked. 63, I think, at Billingsgate. So we're at the top end of corporation compliance. I don't think we will ever remove this risk. It will always be there because by nature of the operation, there will still be accidents. For all that, there will be controls in place. We can't engineer out all risks unless we fundamentally change the structure. So they will remain there and they will be long term. What we want to be able to show you here is that there is control and there's an evolution and an iteration of our safety controls as we progress. Yes, that's been outstanding for a long time at Billingsgate. That doesn't mean that no action has been taken and we have failed to take control of this risk. I think we're coming to a position where what we want to see is that the target risk and the current risk are getting closer together. And when you look at the original risk, we want to see a movement of that risk from top right to bottom left. But yes, I think the way that it was provided for members before in a flight path without any idea of timescale, or there was no real information other than points on a map that didn't make much sense. So I think we could contain that information better in the notes.
Are you happy? Sorry, again. Are you happy?
I quite like the flight paths, Chairman, but I'm happy to see what comes forward. Thank you.
Yeah, see what the improvement is. I think you can improve it. There's no question.
We've sat here and we've discussed the flight path a lot. I think Councillor Tunbridge had a fundamental hatred for it because it didn't make much sense. And I agree. In its current form, it didn't make any sense. I think there would be a better way to provide it. Corporately, we don't have that. Unless we went outside of the report and give you a further deeper dive on risk profile and how that has changed it over the life of the risk. We can do that. And I think that's probably good information for you, Chairman, as an aside. But this, I guess, the corporate stance on the risk report is that it will become more simplified as we go forward.
Yeah.
Just a follow up, if I may, Chair. So are you suggesting then that the category amber has a kind of a time frame associated in it, a risk time frame associated in it? So then if you have a time frame of more than 24 months, should it not then slip into a different category?
I would say that there are risks that we will never get to green. We will not be able to achieve that without large scale investment and a change in our operations. I think the way that the markets operate with large volumes of traffic, huge volumes of members of the public, we cannot control everything. And with the best will in the world, ideas like having a membership scheme are ways of us trying to gain control on a very difficult to control situation. We can have accidents where a member of the public will put their car in reverse instead of first, and they'll go backwards into a pallet of produce. That's a specific example of something that's happened. We can't legislate for that sort of thing. We try our best to have good systems. Our constabulary address issues with high vis. We give out thousands of high vis to try and make people comply. If they turn up, we can turn them away. It's conflict. It's difficult conflict, and then all you've made is a risk in a different area where our members of staff are lone working, being abused, aggressive behaviour and language. You just shift the problem somewhere else. So it's a very difficult risk to remove. In terms of transport, there are other things there that we would like to get down to green, and they would come off the risk register. Transport, I would say, will always be something that we should have an eye on. Even if it's green, it should be here so that we're keeping a good eye on it. But I just can't see it becoming green.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7, questions on matters related to work of the board.
Any questions? Okay.
Chairman, thank you. Item 8, any other business consideration at this point?
I had one question for the chairman of the SMTA. I wondered if, depending on Mr. Clarkson's farm and his clarity of his TB issues with his cattle, and his very depressing article recently in the Sunday Times, we might in the new year investigate an opportunity to go and visit him when hopefully being a farmer will have improved significantly. Well, I realised that, but I do think that we have we had a sort of discussion about this in the May meeting, and it would be quite fun to explore it. I'm very happy to explore it with you outside of the meeting, but given your first class relationship with him, it'd be quite fun to explore it.
We'll explore it together, Chairman. While we're on that subject, and I wish I wasn't with the ball this morning visiting Smithfield, and my son allowed the deputy chairman to cut a lamb up, which he thoroughly destroyed, and the lamb comes to £300, and my son will be paying for that.
Well, would you thank Gregory for his generosity? I think there's a good chance that we might get more of the board to a Clarkson's farm visit than 6:30 in the market, even with the added benefit of the skills of the chief commoner. But no, it would be great if we could do that, because obviously you had a great meeting with him in the market. Thank you. Sorry, and irresponsible behaviour.
Chairman, thank you. Item 9 is exclusion of the public. The members consent to exclude the public at this point. Thank you. Bear with me.
talk about chairman do any better job.